Imagine a scenario where the magnificent tiger, a symbol of raw power and stealth honed in the dense jungles of Asia, embarks on the ultimate challenge, scaling the formidable heights of Mount Everest. In this wild hypothetical, we explore whether such an apex predator could survive the extreme conditions of the world's highest peak, a place where bone-chilling cold, thin air with very low oxygen levels, and treacherous, ever-changing terrain push the limits of endurance and adaptation. The notion of a tiger attempting to climb Everest forces us to examine the physical and physiological constraints of an animal built for dense forests and rugged landscapes, and to ponder whether its extraordinary resilience could somehow overcome nature's most extreme challenges. At the base of Everest, the environment is already a stark contrast to the tiger's native habitat. Tigers are used to warm, humid climates with plenty of cover provided by thick vegetation, and their natural instincts have evolved to favor stealth and power over long, grueling ascents. In the lower altitudes, a tiger might find the weather cold but not insurmountable. However, as it ascends toward the higher reaches of the mountain, the temperature drops dramatically. The freezing air, relentless winds, and snowfall that characterize the upper slopes present a brutal challenge. A tiger's thick fur and layer of fat offer some insulation, but these adaptations were designed for the relatively moderate cold of Siberian forests, not for the bone-chilling temperatures found near the summit of Everest. Oxygen is another critical factor. At sea level, the tiger's metabolism is finely tuned to process a generous amount of oxygen, supporting its explosive bursts of speed and powerful pounces. As altitude increases, the air becomes progressively thinner, meaning that each breath contains significantly less oxygen. In the high-altitude environment of Everest, where oxygen levels can drop to nearly half of what they are at sea level, a tiger would face severe hypoxia. This deficiency would impair its muscle function, slow its reflexes, and diminish its overall strength. Even animals that are adapted to high altitudes, like the snow leopard, have evolved specialized physiological mechanisms to cope with low oxygen levels. A tiger, on the other hand, would struggle without such adaptations. Its heart and lungs, built for life in dense, oxygen-rich forests, would be pushed to their limits, increasing the risk of exhaustion, disorientation, and even life-threatening conditions. The terrain of Mount Everest is a labyrinth of challenges on its own. The mountain slopes are riddled with crevasses, unstable ice formations, and rocky outcrops that shift with the weather. Navigating this perilous environment demands not only physical strength but also an acute sense of balance and an ability to quickly adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Tigers, with their powerful hind legs and agile bodies, are exceptional jumpers and climbers in their native habitats. They can leap great distances and climb with stealth in the undergrowth of forests. Yet, scaling a mountain like Everest is a completely different matter, one that requires the ability to traverse sheer ice walls, navigate dangerous slopes, and contend with unpredictable avalanches. The tiger's natural climbing abilities might offer a glimmer of hope on less severe inclines. But the vertical challenges of Everest, combined with the risk of slipping on icy surfaces, would pose a constant threat. The very design of a tiger's paws, optimized for soft, yielding terrain rather than the hard, slippery surfaces of a frozen mountain, would likely hamper its ability to gain traction and maintain stability on the steep, icy slopes. Survival in such an environment is not solely about physical adaptations, it also depends on the animal's ability to find food and water. In the wild, a tiger relies on its acute senses and powerful build to ambush prey that is both plentiful and nutritious in the forests and grasslands it inhabits. On Mount Everest, however, the availability of prey is virtually non-existent. The harsh climate supports only the hardiest of organisms, and any potential food sources would be sparse and far apart, even if the tiger managed to summit the mountain or find refuge on a less extreme slope. Its hunting instincts would be rendered moot in a barren, icy landscape, without access to sufficient nutrition. Even the most physically formidable tiger would eventually succumb to the rigors of starvation and dehydration. The absence of familiar prey, coupled with the intense energy demands of navigating the mountain's extreme conditions, would severely compromise its chances of long-term survival. Furthermore, the energy expenditure required to ascend Everest is astronomical. Every step in such an extreme environment demands energy not only to move forward but also to combat the chilling cold and to maintain core body temperature. For a tiger, which relies on explosive bursts of energy to hunt, the continuous strain of a high-altitude climb would drain its reserves rapidly. The tiger's metabolism, designed for short bursts of activity followed by periods of rest, would be ill-equipped to handle the sustained exertion demanded by a mountain like Everest. Over time, this relentless demand on its energy stores could lead to muscle fatigue, a weakened immune system, and a heightened vulnerability to the many hazards present in such a harsh environment. Despite these seemingly insurmountable challenges, it is worth considering the extraordinary resilience and adaptability of big cats. Evolution has crafted the tiger into one of the most formidable predators on the planet, a creature capable of extraordinary feats of strength, agility, and endurance. In a hypothetical scenario where a tiger is somehow placed on Mount Everest, one could imagine it drawing on every ounce of its survival instinct to push against the odds. Its powerful muscles, honed over millennia of hunting in the wild, might allow it to make short, desperate leaps over treacherous crevasses or to cling tenaciously to icy ledges. Yet, even the most heroic effort would likely be overwhelmed by the cumulative challenges of extreme cold, oxygen deprivation, and the absence of sustenance. The tiger's natural adaptations, while impressive, are finely tuned to a specific environment, one where dense forests and abundant prey are the norm, not the barren, frozen expanse of the highest mountain on Earth. The thought experiment of a tiger climbing Mount Everest also raises fascinating questions about the limits of animal physiology. It forces us to consider the extraordinary ways in which different species have evolved to meet the demands of their natural habitats. Snow leopards, for instance, are the true masters of high-altitude survival. Their compact bodies, long tails for balance, and thick fur enable them to navigate the steep, icy slopes of the Himalayas with a grace that is nearly otherworldly. They possess specialized adaptations, such as enhanced oxygen carrying capacity in their blood, that allow them to function in environments where oxygen is scarce. In contrast, tigers have evolved in environments where such extreme adaptations are unnecessary. Their physiology is optimized for hunting in warmer climates, and while they are undoubtedly powerful and agile, their bodies are not built to endure the brutal conditions of the world's highest peak. This comparison highlights that even among big cats, the evolutionary paths taken by different species are deeply influenced by the challenges of their respective environments. In an animated simulation of this hypothetical scenario, the tiger's journey up Mount Everest would be portrayed as a dramatic, heroic quest, an epic struggle against the elements that would captivate the imagination of viewers. The animation would begin at the base of the mountain, where the tiger, a symbol of untamed power, sets off into the unknown. As it ascends, the changing landscape is rendered in vivid detail, the lush, temperate forest giving way to snow-covered slopes, rocky outcrops, and eventually, vast expanses of ice under a stark, clear sky. Each step would be a battle against gravity, cold, and exhaustion, with the tiger's muscles straining and its breath visible in the freezing air. The narrative would emphasize the gap between the tiger's natural world and the inhospitable environment of Everest, underscoring the enormous challenges it faces. Throughout the simulation, close-up shots would capture the tiger's intense eyes, the rhythm of its determined gait, and the subtle signs of physiological stress, shivering, labored breathing, and the gradual slowing of its movements. These moments would be juxtaposed against the majestic, icy backdrop of the mountain, highlighting the dramatic contrast between the creature's wild, natural power and the relentless, unforgiving forces of nature. Viewers would be drawn into the tiger's internal struggle, its instinct to climb, to conquer, to survive, against overwhelming odds that test its very limits. As the tiger reaches higher altitudes, the animation would focus on the depletion of oxygen and the impact of the frigid temperatures on its body. The once powerful leaps and agile sprints would give way to slower, more deliberate movements, as the tiger's energy reserves dwindle and its muscles begin to tire. The environment itself would seem to close in around it, a vast, cold desert of ice and snow where every step is a monumental effort. In these moments, the tiger's resilience would be on full display. But so too would the undeniable reality that its natural adaptations are no match for the extreme conditions of Everest. The simulation would capture the poignant beauty and tragic futility of this endeavor, evoking both admiration for the tiger's indomitable spirit and a sobering reflection on the limits of nature. In the end, the hypothesis of a tiger climbing Mount Everest leads us to a profound understanding of the interplay between biology and environment. While the tiger is undoubtedly one of nature's most formidable predators, its evolutionary design is inextricably linked to the lush, resource-rich habitats of Asia, not the barren, icy peaks of the world's highest mountain. The extraordinary conditions of Everest, extreme cold, low oxygen, treacherous terrain, and the absence of food, present insurmountable challenges that even the tiger's remarkable adaptations cannot overcome. The thought experiment serves as a reminder of the delicate balance that exists between an organism and its environment. And it underscores the incredible, specialized pathways that evolution follows to shape the survival strategies of each species. Ultimately, while the idea of a tiger scaling Everest is a captivating exercise in imagination, the harsh reality is that such an endeavor would be beyond the tiger's natural capabilities. The Siberian tiger, despite its impressive strength and agility, is built for the dense, resource-abundant forests and grasslands of its native range. The extreme conditions of Everest, where even snow leopards, the true masters of high-altitude survival, struggle to thrive, would overwhelm the tiger's physiology, leaving it exhausted, vulnerable, and ultimately unable to secure the basic necessities of life such as food and warmth. In conclusion, the epic journey of a tiger attempting to climb Mount Everest is a powerful illustration of the limits of natural adaptation. It highlights that every species is finely tuned to its environment, and that the evolutionary innovations that allow a tiger to dominate in the wild are not universally applicable across all landscapes. While the tiger's long, powerful leaps and stealthy movements are a marvel in the forests and plains of Asia, they cannot be easily transferred to a realm where extreme cold, oxygen scarcity, and perilous terrain reign supreme. This thought experiment, while fantastical, offers us a deeper appreciation for the delicate balance between an animal's natural abilities and the challenges of its environment, a balance that ultimately defines the boundaries of survival in the wild.